Welcome to the Canoga Park Youth Art Center's winter session. Today I'm going to be showing you another landscape, a classic winter landscape with birch trees and a red cardinal, often used around the holidays because of the red and the white. So birch trees are white with these strange little black scratches, and I'm going to show you a cool new tool, an unexpected tool to show you how to make those lines. Let's take a look at what we're making today. All right, here we go. So this is my landscape, and you can tell I'm going to also talk to you about shades of white because no two whites are the same. They're all just a little bit different. If you saw them by themselves, you would say, oh, that's just white. But when you combine them, you start to see how there's all these subtle tones of white. These are my birch trees, and I'm going to show you how to make it with those cool black marks. I have a horizon line. Remember, we're always talking about the horizon line, so that white line of the snow is our horizon line. And then I'm going to have my trees that go right from the top to the bottom, and then our beautiful little cardinal there. So you got a couple options. I'm going to show you some pictures, and you'll see that sometimes there's white backgrounds, there's gray backgrounds. I put a blue background on this. So you have a whole bunch of choices, as always, with how you're making your art. So let's take a look at some other pictures people have made of winter scenes with cardinals. Now here's an actual photograph of a cardinal, and you can tell that a cardinal is really just a circle and a triangle. Cardinals have this classic kind of triangle thing coming off their head with a very tiny triangle beak. And here's another photograph. You can tell they're always out in the winter. So they got the long tails, they're hanging out on the branches. Look at all the gray and the snow on this. And here's our third photograph. You can see they're kind of eating those berries. Now the male cardinal is the bright red, and the other bird behind him, that's the female cardinal. Typically in birdland, the males get all the cool colors and the females are more muted colors. Now let's look at some artwork. Now here are my birch trees, and you can see how there's kind of a light gray background, and my birch trees have those lines. When I was a kid, we would peel the birch bark off of the tree, put it near the fireplace, and it would curl up. It gave us hours of entertainment. And you can see some of the birds are flying. Here's another painting, but look at all of these birds. There's like a bunch of cardinals in this one. And our last picture to look at, now here's one with a blue sky. So this is a choice you will be able to make, whether you want to have a blue sky, gray sky, white sky. It's up to you. Let's take a look at what supplies we'll be needing for today's project. All right, now we're going to need a few sheets of paper because there's a bunch of steps to this. So we need one sheet of paper for our project. That's going to be the base. We need another sheet of paper for our birch trees. And we're going to need a third sheet of paper for an additional horizon line. And then you need to find, look at the difference in these colors of white. Can you see this is more like off-white and that's more like regular white? So try to see if you can find a different color white. If you can, great. If you can't, not a problem. We are also going to need scissors. We're going to need some glue. We're going to need a paintbrush because we're going to paint our background. And here's my surprise tool. Yes, a toothbrush. Very important you use an old toothbrush or one that you get at the dollar store, because once we get paint on it, it can't go back in your mouth again. And we also need a pencil so we can draw our cardinal. And any red paper you have. I happen to have some really shiny paper left over, or scrap, because our bird's not that big. So maybe some wrapping paper, red wrapping paper you have might work. So these are the supplies you're going to be using today. Our first step, oh, and of course we need our paint. Da-da-da-da, paint, paintbrush, and some water. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm painting my background. So I'm going to go with a gray background this time. You guys saw what the blue looks like, so I'm going to go with gray. All right, here's my palette. Remember, keep your palette kind of close to where you're doing so you don't get drips everywhere. Now gray just is black with just a lot of water. So here we go. I'm not being picky about it. If I want to throw a little bit of blue in there, I can put a little bit of blue in there too. Let's see. So you kind of get a blue-gray. And I'm not being that particular about it. Like a winter stormy sky. It's kind of like what we're trying to create here. Remember, all of these little inconsistencies, they make your piece look unique. You don't need to go all the way down, because the second step is this. Take your sheet of paper that was like the off-white, if you were able to find one. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my hillsides. You can draw a line if it makes it easier for you. I'm just cutting out some hills, some winter hills, all covered in snow, like that. Let's see, look, this fits right across the bottom. Can you see that, how it looks like snow? So I'm going to glue this down with my glue stick. Okay, let's do this down. Okay, there we go, there's our first. Now to show people kind of like how different whites are, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm taking, and I don't really need this whole page, but I'm gonna cut out another one, and it's gonna be smaller. And it's gonna have different hills on it too. See this guy? So I'm gonna cut him, I'm gonna glue him to the bottom. Can you guys maybe see how those two whites are different? I'm going to glue this on here. Okay. And then this goes on here. All right. So this is our background, and it's all ready to have our birch trees put on it. So here comes the fun part. We're going to set this aside. Okay. Now I have to make my birch trees. And this is where we're going to have a little bit of fun with our toothbrush. Let's get some of this stuff out of the way so I can show you. All right. Now, I'm going to take my toothbrush. I'm going to put a little bit of paint, this black that I'm using, a little bit, not too much. And I'm going to just grab it and go across like that. I'm going all the way across. Do you see that? I'm not stopping. I'm going all the way across. Maybe I want to get a little bit of unusual stuff in here like the birch trees are. Remember, in nature, there's no regular. Nature likes to be kind of chaotic sometimes. So sometimes we have dark spots in our bark, sometimes we don't. Add a little bit of water. You can do this with a dry brush too. It's a little harder to manage, but it is possible. Okay, now it doesn't look like much right now, just looks like a bunch of stripes on a piece of paper. But here's what we're gonna do. Get a little bit of contrast in there. Contrast means I'm using a little bit of a darker black. It adds a little interest to it. You see how some of those lines are darker like that? I just use less water and more paint. All right, I think we're ready to cut out our birch trees. So now, it'll take just a second to dry. I'm going to start cutting out my trees. I'm going to cut this way because my trees are going to go from the top to the bottom. It's going to be up to you. Do you want fat trees? Do you want skinny trees? Do you want trees that are in between? There we go. Let's make a skinny, skinny, skinny one. Oops. And let's try one more. All right. See, we have our strips. And I have a little bit left over because I can cut some branches, some smaller branches off of that. So let's put this out of our way. Let's bring back our beautiful landscape and let's put on our trees. So here's our landscape. And I'm going to lay the trees over it. use all of them. It's nice to sometimes to have empty space so the eye has a place to rest. There we go. What do you think about that? I think that's looking okay. So we're going to glue these down. Hang on a sec. I got a little bit coming up here. I want to make sure this guy is glued down all the way. All right. Now I'm going to, you can put them right side up or upside down. Doesn't much matter. There we go. What do you think? This gonna work? Okay, so now I'm gonna put my strips down. Alrighty. And we're gonna go back with some smaller ones for the little branches that come off. Okay, we're gonna get the small one down now. Whoops, out of glue already. Oh. Here's our last tree. Get you down. All right. Now, as you know, and our bird needs something to set on, so now I'm going to make some branches. And those will be easy. I've got this strip just hanging out here. I'm going to cut this to make really skinny branches. I'm going to cut them into short sections. And then, all I have to do is glue them coming up at an angle. Ta-da! These are just the little branches that come off the side of the tree. Oops. All right, let's see. Put this one coming off this way. All right. So now we have our branches. We have our birch trees. We have our background of our landscape. The only thing we're missing now is our cardinal, right? So I have my paper, my shiny paper, any kind of paper as long as it's red. I'm going to draw on the other side so that I can see it. Let's get a clear spot to work here. It's a circle with some tail feathers coming out, which is kind of like a long triangle. I got a little head here, and I got a triangle on top of my head, and I got a tiny little beak coming out. Cardinals got very round bodies. So there's my cardinal. Dink, dink, dink. And now I'm just going to cut them out. There's my cardinal. And you can put a magic marker eyeball in there if you want. And we're going to pick a branch, and he's going to be hanging out on that branch. Okay, let's put him right up here. All right, now if you have extra red paper, you saw some of those. They had tons of cardinals on them. You see how our finished picture looks? So you can tell. Let's see if I can get my blue one up here at the same time. So you can tell, blue, gray, they kind of have a different feel about it, but they're both beautiful, beautiful winter landscapes. Super easy to make. You get to play with a new and unexpected tool. You get to learn about the very delicate shades of white there are, and you get to make this really kind of seasonal landscape. It kind of has a holiday little feel about it. So, hope you enjoyed making our red cardinal winter landscape today. Thank you for joining us at the Canoga Park Youth Arts Center. Have a wonderful holiday.